She wore the hat like armor, but what it hid was harder to play. A decades-long battle with bulimia, family addiction, and health scares that never made the headlines. This is the story of how a beloved icon kept showing up, flawed, fierce, and quietly unbreakable. Diane Keaton moved through rooms with a tilt of the head and a laugh that felt like a private joke you'd been let into. The world recognized her from Annie Hall's nervous charm and an Oscar night that turned vulnerability into style. Decades of films, from the breakout of The Godfather to neurotic brilliance of Annie Hall to tender turns in Something's Gotta Give and Darling Companion, built a career that made her face and voice shorthand for a certain modern femininity. Witty, wary, defiantly likable. Fame brought fans and accolades, but it also brought close scrutiny. Early in her career, a director's offhand remark about weight landed like a stone, and the need to conform to an industry ideal nudged her toward disordered eating. What began as dieting became a cycle she later called bulimia, hidden rituals, brief relief, and the shame that followed. She talked about it in measured ways, in interviews, and in passages she shared from her life, enough to let people know she'd wrestled with this privately for years. She later admitted that in her 20s she became a master at hiding an eating disorder, slipping into secretive cycles that few around her noticed. That phrase, master at hiding, captures the double life many stars live, brilliant in public, guarded and suffering alone in private. Keaton even went further, saying, "I had a problem. It was sick and creepy. Bulimia takes a lot of time out of your day." Family pain threaded through the public chapters. A brother's long battle with alcohol and fragile mental health left marks that she spoke about with a mix of sorrow and bluntness. Those dynamics taught her to be guarded in love and fiercely independent in choice. They shaped the way she parented and the relationships she selected. Watching someone close struggle with addiction is a slow erosion. Keaton's reflections show how that erosion reshapes trust and self-expectation. Physical health added another layer. She's been candid about medical scares, skin checks, surgeries, the uneasy routine of follow-ups that come with aging in the public eye. The practical side of being an older actor, balancing procedures, recovery, and a grueling schedule, meant rethinking roles, travel, and even wardrobe. She described moments when a cast or a test upended plans, replacing a scene with a doctor's appointment and a script with patience. Her coping strategies were both creative and mundane. Photography became a refuge, an intimate practice that let her see and be seen on her own terms. Writing, too, essays and memoir excerpts where she laid out small truths rather than confessions. Style functioned as armor, the hats and menswear. Inspired suits were as much a statement as a defense, a way to control the gaze that had once felt invasive. Therapy, steady friendships, and a professional routine grounded her. She showed up on sets not because she was untouched by pain, but because she'd learned to carry it differently. She kept showing up. On sets, at premieres, in essays and interviews, she threaded humor through confession until the two felt inseparable. The public image, wide-brimmed hats, a wardrobe all her own, was part performance and part protection. It said, "I am here, but I carry things with me." That tension, fame's bright spotlight against a private, persistent ache, was what defined those years, shaping choices that would later read as resilience rather than mere survival. Early praise and bright lights didn't soften the pressure. They sharpened it. A director's casual comment about weight in the early days lodged like a command, and what started as dieting became a hidden, punishing ritual. Episodes of binging and purging she later referenced in interviews and memoir fragments. It was never a single dramatic reveal, but a pattern: secrecy, brief relief, shame, then the quiet decision to carry on. That secrecy lived next to public triumphs, award speeches, premieres, acclaim, so the contrast felt brutal. Home life amplified the strain. Family histories of alcohol and fragile mental health left long shadows. She watched relatives stumble and sometimes falter, and those experiences taught her to brace for instability. The emotional labor of fearing history repeating itself made intimacy difficult. She spoke about boundaries and independence as survival tools, and those choices reshaped relationships and how she parented. The grief wasn't always explosive. It was the slow, gnawing sort that settles into routine and decisions. Medical alarms layered on the psychological toll. Recurring skin checks, procedures, and follow-up visits became part of a new normal. Appointments that could interrupt filming, recovery that forced cancellations, and the persistent background anxiety of waiting for results. Those practical interruptions mattered. They demanded adaptations, changed career calculations, and reminded her that even icons are subject to frail bodies. There were cycles of relapse and repair. After periods of struggle, she would retreat, less press, fewer public appearances, then re-emerge with a role, a book of photographs, or a candid interview. Photography and writing became tools for processing rather than just work, private disciplines that allowed control and perspective. Friends and collaborators noted how she could be both brittle with fatigue and astonishingly present when the camera rolled, a kind of compartmentalized resilience born of necessity. Throughout, she made choices that kept momentum possible. Therapy, routines that prioritized medical care, and a wardrobe that served as both identity and defense. Those small, consistent acts added up. Where rumors swirled about private final months or causes for sudden absences, reports claimed differing accounts. It's been said that some details remain family, private, and unconfirmed. Those whispers don't erase the clearer through line, a life repeatedly tested by eating disorder cycles, family addiction, and health scares, yet marked by a stubborn refusal to disappear. The conflict wasn't a single catastrophe. It was a grinding series of demands on time, body, and spirit. Fame amplified each one, but it also provided platforms, interviews, and memoir pages where she could name parts of her struggle, if only in fragments. Those fragments became lifelines for others watching, evidence that pain and achievement can coexist, that relapse doesn't have to mean the end, and that persistence can look like returning to work with a steadier hand despite ongoing wounds. She didn't vanish. She turned the very things that wounded her into tools for staying in the fight. After years of private cycles and public pressure, she leaned into candor, short, measured disclosures in interviews and memoir passages that made suffering legible without being spectacle. Speaking up didn't fix everything, but it loosened shame's grip and invited others to see struggle as part of a life, not its definition. Creativity became repair. Photography gave her a small, controllable world to tend. Writing let her shape truth into language that comforted readers and herself. Roles she chose later in life reflected that hard-earned nuance. Women who carried contradictions, who were funny and fierce and bruised. Those performances weren't about triumphal recovery so much as steady presence, showing up for the work again and again. She also built practical scaffolding, regular medical care, clear boundaries with family, and therapy. These aren't dramatic beats, but they're how many people survive. Style remained a form of agency. The hats, the tailored suits, the look that said she would control what could be controlled. Friends and collaborators talk about a generosity of spirit that coexisted with guardedness. Resilience, in her case, looked less like invincibility and more like methodical endurance. There were no neat finales. Reports claim some later details remain private and unconfirmed. Rumors suggest causes for pauses in public life, but those whispers are not established facts. The truest ending is quieter, a long life of work and reinvention, threaded through with recurring struggles that she did not hide from entirely, but neither let define her. The takeaway is not a tidy moral, but a practical, human one. Speak when you can, seek help early, and keep creating even when it's the hardest thing to do. She walked away from the spotlight with contradictions intact, famous but fallible, stylish but scarred, witty but serious. That messy persistence is the lesson she left. Resilience is a series of small, stubborn acts, a refusal to stop showing up. Diane Keaton's story isn't a neat victory lap. It's a long, honest negotiation with pain, creativity, and survival. She taught us that resilience can be quiet, stubborn work, naming struggle without letting it erase who you are, building small routines that keep you standing, and using art to heal. If her life sparks something in you, don't let it stop here. Leave a comment sharing a moment that moved you, or a lesson you've learned from someone who kept showing up. If you found this video meaningful, hit like and subscribe for more stories about resilience, creativity, and the complicated lives behind the headlines.